So let's begin then. Good morning, everyone. And this is the last lecture from Kalmar on requirements engineering. So before starting the lecture, did anybody has had time to play with the Eclipse or the tutorial that I uploaded?
Yeah.
So did you made it?
Yeah, I just had some problems, but I fixed them.
Okay.
It
So,
worked for me.
sorry?
It didn't work for me.
It didn't work for you?
No.
So maybe we can, if you want, we can check after the lecture.
Okay.
Because there will be part of your assignment that you need to play with that language and that tool. So anybody on the Slack could play with the tutorial. I think the tutorial was very clear, right? And step by step. So it should not be a problem unless you have a problem with Eclipse or Java. So anybody on the Slack could play with the tool or with the tutorial? I don't know how many you are following online. Okay, so let's move forward. So the slides are also in my Moodle if you want to follow online. And end of this lecture, I will also provide some information on the assignment, what is expected on part of this assignment. So today we'll also so did you try to install also the tool for today?
Yeah.
So did it worked? So could you run the tool?
Haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
I just run it.
Okay. So anybody on online could run the tool that I showed last time before we finish the lecture? I think nobody's responding online, so let's move.
They said on the last question they have responded. I think it's yesterday.
No, it's Jacob, because I don't see any response, or my computer might have connectivity issue. So let's begin with today's lecture. So today we'll play with another tool, and that tool is so you already know the name of the tool. It's STS tool, and that tool is very good for requirements modeling, and in particular if you want to model your security requirements, and if you want to extract or elicit your security requirements. So this tool is also usable for you can use for other goals or other purposes, but mostly this is used for eliciting the security requirements from different stakeholders or different actors. And the guys online, if you still did not finish the installation, maybe you can just go to this link, and during the lecture or during the first half of the lecture you can try to install. Then we can play with the tool after the break. So this is the tool that I was talking about, security requirements modeling tool, the STS. So you need always Java, and you need the last version of the Java, not the older versions. So I think 6 will not definitely work. 7 might work or not, but the better the higher version of Java you have is less chance to fail. So what is a socio-technical system, or STS? Basically all the systems that are developed today, or all the systems that are designed or we use today, are the category of this system, socio-technical systems. Why? Because there is 2 aspects of the systems, so social aspect and the technical aspect. So social aspect are basically the users or stakeholders, basically end users, or the communication or interaction between them. And then there is also technical aspect, like what are the requirements it has, how they are implemented, what are the various issues in terms of security, in terms of connectivity, and so on. So there is non-functional and functional aspect, and Some of the examples of this kind of system, as you see, it includes all types of systems. So smart homes, e-commerce systems, e-health systems, e-marketing systems. So all of them involve both the end users and also the technical part of it. So it has both socio-technical concern. So this is a very simple example. I used the same example also last year. So LNU is asking a researcher or a visiting teacher to give a seminar or to give a lecture, and so this having a lecture or giving a asking for a seminar is a goal or kind of objective for LNU. Then what this visiting researcher does, he talks to a travel agency for booking his trip. So booking the trip is also another objective for this visiting researcher. Then this travel agency talked to other third-party websites or applications where he can find cheap flights. So finding cheap or affordable flight also a goal for this stakeholders or the users. He will also find a hotel for the researcher. So finding a available and affordable room for this researcher is another objective for the travel agency. This hotel has multiple dependencies or social dependencies on other actors, like the guys who are providing logistic supports, the guys who are providing laundry supports, and so on. And when this agency is looking for the third-party applications for finding flights or cheap flights, that application is also talking to multiple other systems, external systems. So there are, as you can see, multiple interaction between all the stakeholders or for all the users. And while they are doing this kind of interactions, there is always kind of either security threats or security needs or any other concern in terms of authorization or authentication that they need to provide. For example, if one staff is talking to a third-party logistics provider, he obviously needs to give his credential, or he needs to prove that he is speaking from this particular hotel. And similarly, if this travel agency is talking to a third-party application or website, he might need to authenticate himself as an authorized user of that system. So basically, a socio-technical system, or if other words, we can use a language to model those kind of systems, and in particular the requirements, and more specifically the security requirements. So there is a language called STSML, so socio-technical security modeling language. And what it does, it takes all the stakeholders, or in other words, the actors, and what are their objectives. So those objectives are represented as goal. So this is mainly a stakeholders and objective-oriented or goal-oriented modeling language, and it also shows not only the objectives or actors or stakeholders, it also shows the interactions between them. So how they interact each other to achieve those goals or objectives. In this modeling language, this is a very simple and interesting modeling language. So it has multiple views. For example, we have actors or stakeholders, they are talking to each other. So this can be a social view, and basically it provides a social network of the actors. And then we can have a, let's say, information view, so where it shows all the information that are passing through each other, that the actors pass through each other. And then there can be other more advanced level of views, and there is, I think, one example of authorization view, where different actors authorize other actors or other document or other information in some particular way. We will show some examples here. So what the basic use of this tool, or this STL tool, is to express your security needs or in other words, security constraints. And these security needs, you can express them using diagrams, but then they will be translated to some security requirements. So you will end up with a formal security requirements specification document. And we will also play with this example in the second part. And so that's what I was mentioning. It has three different views: social view, information view, and an authorization view. So social view is about the goals or objectives or the intentions, and the sociality, so the network or the dependency between actors or stakeholders. And information view is all about information or document. So what are the information are passed through between or among the actors or stakeholders. And authorization view is basically am I authorized to do something. So I may have an objective that I want to fulfill, but I want to transfer, or I want to achieve that objective by means or with the help of another actors or another stakeholders. So then the authorization come into the picture, that is that another actor or another stakeholder is authorized to do that kind of duty. And you can impose security needs or security requirements in all those three views, or basically they are perspective. So you can look at a system from many perspectives. So these are three different perspectives that you can look at the system. So first of all, social view. So now I will try to introduce each of them a little bit in detail. The social view has two different main design approach. So one is the goal delegation, and another one is the document transmission. So you have multiple actors or multiple stakeholders. They each have their own goal, but sometimes they want to delegate their goal to other actors, so that they can not only get that objective done, but they can also at the same time focus on their own other objectives or other goals. So this goal delegation is very common approach in modeling the social view. And then the document transmission. So basically what you do, if you want to achieve a objective or goal, you might need some information or some document. So you can get this document from the other actors, as well as you can provide a document that you are the owner to other actors to achieve their respective goals or objectives. So this kind of goal delegation and document transmission are the two main characteristics of social view. And then on top of this goal delegation and document transmission, you specify various security needs. So so those security needs are about the document and about the goal. So this is the meta model of the social view. It looks hard, but it's not so hard. So as you can see, our central component of this social view is the actor or the stakeholders, and this actor can be either a agent or role. So basically agent plays a role. For example, Mary is a secretary, and Mary is playing the role of a secretary. So this is the central component of the social view, the actor, which also has multiple goals. So each actor wants to fulfill a number of goals. Goals can be composed or decomposed of multiple sub-goals. Goals can produce or modify or edit some document, and this document can be either transmitted or delegated to other actors. Actors can also do the delegation, and these delegation are basically either about the goal or about the document or information. There can be also event in our social view, and each event either affects the goal or the actor. So those events are basically threats or security or risk. It can be anything that either positively or negatively affect your system. And I think I mentioned all of them. And then there is a meta model also for information and authorization view. So information view, for example, our document and the information are the main or central actor or central component. Information is basically part of the document. Usually you can find information in the document, and you can also authenticate an information through the document. So this information is tangible by the document. Information can be a part of another information. In the same way, document can be part of another document. Usually all this document and information are owned by an actor, and those information and document are both a subtype of resource. So in the social view, those are all resources. Then also in the authorization view, this is the third level view, and in the central component, as a central component of authorization view, we have this authority, and this authorization are provided basically over information. And what we want to say that given we have an actor, is he authorized to perform some actions on some information or on some document. And there is a scope. As you can see, this scope are also over the goal and over the information. So which goal or which information or which document it covers, or this authorization covers, that is defined through scope. We will obviously see some examples and then some hands-on after in the introduction. There are, I think, 25 security requirements or security needs predefined in this modeling language in STS. But most of those security requirements, as you can see, mainly they are classified into 3 or 4. So security needs about information, security needs about delegation or delegated goal, security needs about transmission, so how the document will be transferred or the information will be transferred. And then there is also about the achievement, the security needs related to achievement. So for example, a goal can be achieved through redundancy, like with multiple document or with the help of multiple actors, and then we can define what are those different types of combination of actors or documents we might have. But overall, these security needs are about the information. They are also about the goal here, and then they are also about the document. So document availability, document integrity, and so on. You might not need all of them, but it depends also on the context, what type of security needs you want. But we will also show some examples afterwards. So out of those 25 security needs, or in other words, they are basically translated into security requirements at the end. So out of those 25 security requirements, 11 of them are about the goals or delegated goals. For example, non-repudiation. So now I will try to introduce some of the security needs. So one of them is non-repudiation. Like if I am delegating a goal to some actor or some stakeholders, he cannot deny to provide me or to fulfill that objective. So he must accept the goal and act accordingly. Then redundancy. Redundancy is basically how you want to fulfill the goal. You can use multiple other actors, multiple other documents. So you have to define your own strategy. And then there is non-delegation. So if a goal is delegated to another actor, he cannot further delegate to another actor. So it must be done by the delegatee, and there will be always only one level of delegation. It cannot be multi-level of delegation. Trustworthiness. So this I think last 3 or 4 they're about authentication and authorization. So trustworthiness is that the guy who is delegating a objective or goal, he might be trustworthy. And then authentication is the same. For the delegator who is delegating the goal, he must be authenticated to the delegatee or to whom he is delegating the goal. The availability is about delegatee. So if I am delegating a goal or objective, the guy who will be performing this task or who will be responsible for this goal must be available to some percentage or to some extent. So we can mention the availability requirements through this security need. There are also 4 security needs for the document. So most of the security needs are basically about the delegated goals or goals, but there are 4 security needs for the document. The document should be so the integrity of the document should not be compromised. So basically the document should be correct and not modified or accessed by third party during the transmission, for example. Document should be available always with the given condition, like percentage of the availability here. Then the document should be sometimes confidential, so no other actors or stakeholders can view the document or edit the document. And it should be also authenticated. So if someone wants to access a document, we need to check if it's authorized to access that document. Or if we are sending to a document to someone, we need to make sure that we are sending to the authenticated person or right person. There are 6 security requirements about the information. So information is also part of the documentation, but document are at the more higher level than the information. So information has some very basic security requirements. So nobody can read, nobody can modify it, nobody can produce this information, nobody can disclose, nobody should know, and there should be only one authorization, and authorization cannot be transferred to other actors for this information. Then there is also 4 security needs for the authorization view. And for example, authorization can be over a operation, and those operation can be read, write, edit, and delete. And then there is authorization over the information, and also those authorization on the information regarding a operation is about basically about the document. Then the scope. So this scope defines which goal or which objective this authorization is about, and also which document is this authorization about, and the transferability of the permission. So if I permit you something, if I give a permission for one data or for one objective, you cannot transfer these permissions to other actors. So these are 25 security requirements about information, authorization, and goals. So now I will show the process, the high-level view of the process, how you can define your security requirements. So as a requirements engineer or security requirements engineer, what you do, you basically draw this social view. Social view usually look like they have lots of green components, so those are goals or objectives. Then he also draws the information view, so all those gray boxes, those are either information or document. And then he also have the authorization view. So authorization is over the document and or over the delegated goal. So once he has this operational view, so combined, all 3 are known as operational view, then he come up with some security needs, basically, or specify some security needs. Those security needs will be about either the goals or the document or about the authorization. And once he specifies the security needs, the tool automatically generate this document or this final security requirements document. In other words, if we want to look at into more details, so see, this is also similar to the requirements elicitation in the requirements engineering that we discussed during the first 2 lectures, and this is also about security requirements. So you are doing the same here. So what you do, you first identify the stakeholders, and you also need to follow the same process for your assignment. So you start identifying the stakeholders or all relevant actors, and then what are the information or document they own or they might have. So stakeholders, assets, and how they can interact with each other, with other actors. So their assets or documents and their interactions with other actors. So those interactions will be about goals or about objectives that you want to fulfill. Then once you are done with your social view modeling. So this 1.2 is about social view modeling. It can also include information view and authorization view modeling, depending on if you want them or if you need them. And then you go for the security needs. So for each document or information, for each goal or for each authorization, you need to specify security needs. And also you might have some threats that will affect your model. So those are events or risk, and obviously they can be also about information and goal or even actors. So once you have this done this social view, you do the same thing for information view and authorization view using the same sets of actors. And if you think that some objectives or some goals can be still added and you might want to refine your model, you can always go back to phase 1 and you continue this phase 1, 2, and 3 until you are satisfied. And once you are done with the modeling, so in this part, in the modeling activities part, you specified first of all stakeholders, then their documents or assets, their interactions. So those interactions will involve their objectives and how they want to achieve those objectives, then different security needs, and also different events in terms of threats. And once you have them, you need to have these 3 major steps. So one is the well-formed check, where you check your modeling is correct in terms of syntactic and in terms of semantic relations between actors and documents. You will also perform a security analysis. So whatever security needs you imposed there or mentioned there, they should not contradict both also from the actor side, but also in terms of modeling perspective. So you cannot sometimes mention 2 security needs that are contradicted. So that one will be checked in the security analysis parts, and this is the main part of this modeling tool. And then there is also risk analysis. So since we are mentioning different threats or risk here, that will be also analyzed, that which part of the model is more vulnerable or which part of the system is more vulnerable. And once you are done with this, you can export or derive your security requirements using the tool that we will also use today, and that will automatically generate a detailed security requirements document, and that will be also the outcome of your assignment 1. So I will tell you also details about later. So now I will briefly introduce or maybe quickly introduce some of the concepts in this modeling tool or of this security requirements modeling tool. So the first and most basic concept is agent and role. So agent is the human, for example, and he can play a role, and the role is represented in this notation. For example, there can be multiple people playing one single role. but usually there is not the other way. So usually there is not multiple role that is played by one agent. So role are basically generalizations of the agent. In other words, these are the stakeholders or different types of stakeholders, but if you have one of the stakeholders that are developers, there can be multiple developers, and those are agents. So as I mentioned, Anna, she is an agent and she is playing a role of secretary. Each agent might have a goal or objective, and usually in this tool, the objectives or the goals are represented using this green triangle. And when you are putting a objective or a goal close to a role, that means this objectives is objective of this role, and as this objective is within the boundary of this role, that means this objective is within the scope of this role. So if you place this, basically in the tool you cannot place this outside of the scope, so every goal or every objective must be within the scope of a role. And this is the example how you place the objectives that correspond to a role within the scope. So this boundary defines the scope for this role. Any document or any goal that correspond to this role will be placed within this boundary. Then the goal decomposition. This is another very common and interesting modeling notation. You can achieve a goal by either achieving other sub goals where you need to meet all the sub goals. So you decompose the goal using and notation. So basically what it's saying here, if you want to achieve goal 1, you must achieve goal 2 and goal 3. And then there is also or decomposition. So if you want to achieve goal 1, this can be done either by achieving goal or either by achieving goal 3. So you can achieve goal 1 either fulfilling the goal 2 or goal 3. So for example, about this lecture, some people are following the lecture online and some people are in the class. So in any ways, both of your goals are fulfilled. And then there is a document or information. Information is a very small pieces of data, and this can be part of the document. Document is represented with a rectangle but line without any dots or a straight line, but information is about represented by dotted lines. Sometimes we need both. It depends on the objective or goal. And then there is scope. I think I already mentioned it. So we presented goal and document within the scope of this role. So this boundary defines the scope. And any other actors outside this scope cannot directly talk to this document or cannot directly take the responsibility of this goal unless they are delegated or unless they are authorized by this role. So an agent or role can own a information or own a document. So this is represented using this own keyword. Then document transmission. So here this role is transmitting or sending this document to this agent. So he is delegating this document or he authorizing this agent to use this document. This is another form of authentication, and so here there was no authentication. So anyone can use this document, but here you have a particular authentication specified. So only R2 can read this document, document 1. And so this is one way of specifying security needs over the document. So this is one of the security needs, that you need to be authenticated to access this document. Tangible information. So as I mentioned, information are usually part of the document. So this information is correct or valid. It can be only measured or confirmed by this document. So if you find this information in the document, or if the document has this information, then you can say that this information is tangible or proper correct information. Part of relationship. So information can be always part of another information. A document can be part of another document. So this is a simple composition in UML. Goal and document relationships. So a goal can read a document. A goal can modify a document. A goal can create or produce a document. A goal can even delete a document. But you can simply represent them using predefined relationships between goal and document. And this is another, I think already mentioned this one, goal delegation between role and agent. But there are multiple types of goal delegation, and this is also again about the part of the security needs. For example, no delegation. So when a role is delegating a goal to another agent or role, he mentions that there is no del. That means agent 1 cannot further delegate this goal to another one. So this is one type of security needs. Then non-repudiation. So when this role is delegating this goal to an agent, he mentioned here in the security needs that non-repudiation. So this agent cannot deny this objective or goal. He must fulfill this goal. Then there is redundancy. When we mention here with redundancy, RED, this agent 3 can achieve this goal whatever way he wants, but not by delegating others, maybe planning his own strategy. So by decomposing the goal, or by authenticating other users, external users, to achieve the goal, and so on. So he basically use a redundant method to achieve this goal. Trustworthiness is the same thing. So between role 4 and role 5, when they are transmitting this goal, and role 4 should be trusted actor to do that, or to delegate this goal. Availability, and when this role is delegating another goal to another role, he specify the availability here in terms of security needs. So the role 7, or in this case this role, must be available at to some percentage, or the whatever percentage is mentioned here, to fulfill this goal. If he is busy with other activities, he might not fulfill this goal. Then the authentication. The role 1 is sending or transmitting or delegating a goal to role 2. So role 1 must be authenticated, and as well as role 2 must be authenticated to receive or send this goal, or to achieve this goal. Separation of duties. Separation of duties is two kinds. So one is between the roles, and another one is between the document. So when is between the roles, one agent cannot play the same role. So let's say Anna cannot be program coordinator, at the same time she cannot be secretary. So she has to be either secretary or program coordinator. Also, when there is a separation of duties between the goals, you cannot achieve both of them. So either you have to achieve this goal, or you have to achieve this goal. So you have to compromise one of the goals. But there is also the other way, that is combination of duty. So when there is this sign, so separation of duty is the symbol is not equals, and also for the separation of duties for goals is not equals. But combination of duties, just use the equal sign, where Anna can play the role of both program coordinator and the secretary. And when there is a combination of duty between documents, basically you can achieve both the goals, or you can choose only to have one goal, so you have the freedom. So the events or threats or risk, so any event that hinder your goal achievement, or any threats that affect your document or information integrity, let's say, or even the security, are known as events. So events are usually represented using this notation. And event can be about goals, it can be about goal delegations, it can be about documentation or documents, even information. Then we also mentioned about authorization. So this is one very typical example of authorization, or what it looks like. Let's say role, there is a authorization between role and agent. So this role is authorizing the agent for this information in the scope of this goal, and this agent can only read and transmit this information. So he cannot modify, or he cannot create a new information. Then there is another example. I think this is the same example. So an authorization is done on this goal for this information, and this agent again can read or transmit. But here we did not mention one thing, is that if this agent can modify or produce the information or not. But if we want to mention that, there is another way of just putting the cross in the same way that we put the green tick here. I think in the example that we will show it's there. So until now, any questions for the tool? Or
yeah, I might have missed it, but what was the difference between the association line? You have one dotted association line and one.
I think it depends on the it was taken from the example, but it depends on what type of goal it is. So sometimes it's a delegated goal, sometimes it is own goal. So I think it's the difference between that. And I think what I remember, if it's the delegated goal, then it's the dotted ones. If it's a own goal of this role, then it's a straight line. But now maybe, what's the time? So maybe let's have a 10-minute break, quick break, and then So let's begin. So anybody could install the tool? I'm starting the tool. And there was a question in Slack. Did anyone manage to download the Linux installer?
No, we have Windows on Mac,
Okay.
Linux, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
have
no
it.
internet, so.
He removed the quest. He saw it.
Okay.
Grejen är använder mobildatan mycket och så.
Oh. For me, it's taking so long to start the tool. I don't know why.
Connection is really bad in here.
No, but this tool doesn't need the internet connection.
Even my mobile internet is bad in here.
Let's go on dash.
That's what I'm doing. Det går när jag kommer hit.
Måste jag regga?
Okay, finally started. Don't know why it always go outside the margin. Yeah. So let me also introduce the use case. So there is this scenario or use case or the problem, design problem, and the scenario. So this is about more about a use case where a student or international student, he needs a document to for the immigration office to renew or extend his study permit. So the student needs this document from the university, and the actors. So student is the main actor here, and then the actors from the university or stakeholders from the university are the program coordinator or the secretary or any other one that are involved in the department or in the admin office. And then there is also a technical guy or database guy. We call them his data manager, where he authorizes or provides all the data required by the program coordinator or secretary, so that they can prepare the document based on the data they receive for the student. And let's begin with the modeling this scenario. So if you want to remember or look at the scenario, it's also on the slide. And now let's begin with the tool. So if anybody is already familiar with the tool, it has some. Okay, let me create a new project first, then maybe some more options will come. So if I create a new STS project and give the name and just example or just a student, because this is a student's use case, and once you create a project, you go to your model folder and in the STS folder create a new STS diagram. So just again call it student. So once you create the diagram, now you have more screens and stuff. Let me introduce briefly the tool itself. So this is your palette for modeling your tool, for modeling your use case or specifying your security requirements. So these are the nodes that we mentioned: the agent, roles, goal, document, and an event. You have multiple links. So some of them are about delegation or transmission or between role or agent. Let's say agent can play a role. Then there is about the links. These are about document or about goals. So you can decompose your goal between and R and R, and then you can also relate goal and document using either they read or they produce or they modify a document. Sometimes you can also combine or define if there is any incompatible roles or documents. So this is basically combination of duty and separation of duty concept that we introduced. And then there is a threaten. So this is the risk or event definition notation. So the notations are fairly simple in terms of modeling. And we also talked about 3 views, right? This is social view. So we basically draw the social view here, and then the information from the social view will automatically transferred here. So we have this information view, and then in this view you can add even more information. And then we have the authorization view. So thus from the social view, if there are any goal delegation or any other delegations, they will be automatically transferred here, and then you can add further authorizations based on the document or delegated goal. We also have there 3 tabs under these views. So the properties, the general property tab, we will see all the analysis results in this tab, and we will also see the security requirements that we will define here. And these security requirements can be exported in some XML format that you can automatically use and analyze further. On top, we have this export or generate report functionality. Basically, you will use at the end when you are done with your modeling. We also have export diagram, so you can choose whatever diagram you want or whatever format you want to export. Then you have these 3 analysis that was also mentioned in the slides. So well-formedness check, and then security analysis and threat analysis. And before generating this final report, you have to do all of them so that they are all green or they are all done. So if you have this tool running, let's start with the modeling part using the scenario that we described. So we go to the social view. Is there any questions in Slack? So anyone following on the Slack on the tool and the scenario that I defined?
The student, is it a diagram?
Sorry?
The student, how do you create it?
It's diagram.
Yeah, it's diagram. I think there is only one thing, only the diagram. There is nothing else. So you go to the student. So the first thing first, the main actor. We have this, or the main role. We have this student, right? So simply drag this role. Maybe I will try to go a bit quickly so that I can finish the whole tutorial on time. Maybe I should make a little bit smaller so that I can show. Maybe it's not readable now, so maybe in this way. So the student role, and he has for now only one goal, right? So we take the goal and then put it within the scope of student. And the goal of the student is write a document for immigration office, let's say, or to get a document for immigration office. So this is the student, and this is his prime or solo goal. We save it, and what it does, he wants, let me make a little bit smaller so that I can fit more model components. So what it does, it needs this letter from the program coordinator, right? And we already saw that there are 4 actors or stakeholders, and students want this letter from program coordinator. So we will have another role, let's say program coordinator. So student want this letter from the program coordinator. So what he will do, so we go to the links. So he will delegate, so take the delegation. So he will delegate this goal to program coordinator. So draw a line from the goal to program coordinator, and it will be automatically created a link between these 2 roles. And as you can see, it also created a new goal for the program coordinator, and with a different color. So with this darker color means this was a goal received from another actor, or in other words, the student actor delegated this goal to program coordinator, right? And with this goal achieved, what we will get a document. Let's say we will get, because this goal will be achieved here, it will not be achieved by the student in the first place. So we will get a signed official letter, right? And this will be, basically this goal will produce this document. So that's why we have this produce relationship between this goal and the document. So while achieving, to achieve this goal, the program coordinator can do it, basically have to rely on other sources or other sub goals. What are those sub goals? Let me put those sub goals first. So one of the sub goals that he needs is get student record. He needs to get student record, or he also needs to get, or he also needs to write the, so once he got the record, he needs to write the official document, and once he write the official document, he needs to sign it, right? Sign the document. So we said that in order to achieve this right document for IO, immigration office, he needs to get the student record, he needs to write the official document, and he needs to sign the document. And these objectives or sub-objectives must be achieved using in combination. So the combination should be, or decomposition should be AND. So in order to achieve this goal, we must achieve these 3 other goals. And then program coordinator has lots of other responsibilities, right? He cannot he might not himself write this official document, and he might not have the student record. So what he does, he asks his secretary, say, let's say we have another role, and she is the secretary of the program coordinator. So the program coordinator delegate this goal, get student record, to secretary. Get student record to secretary. So we delegated this goal. And also, for writing the official document or the document for the student, the program coordinator can do it in 2 possible ways. So one is update old document, or write a new one. And in this case, the decomposition will be OR decomposition. So I save it, and then if he wants to write a new document, he also does not have time to type all that new document or new letter. So what he do, he also delegate this writing the new document to his secretary. So now we have 2 delegated goals between secretary and the program coordinator. So anybody could do until this step? So on the Slack, anybody? So everybody is following on the Slack also. So just for the checking, if we go to the information view, as you can see, we have only 1 document until now, and that was the signed official letter. So it automatically transferred to this view. But in terms of authorization, we have nothing, because we didn't define any authorization yet. So that's why it's empty. Yeah, it's Jacob said, is it acceptable that notations cross each other? Yeah, it's acceptable. So it's just a representation concern, and it doesn't make any error, or it will not have any problem. So we are in the secretary. So secretary has these 2 new delegated goal, right? And one of the goal, like write new document. For writing a new document, what he will do, the secretary, he might have a template. So let's say template. So these are all resources. So what he can do for writing a new document, she can modify this template. making little bit bigger. So she can modify this template, but before modifying the template, she also needs to read the template, right, or find the template, correct template. So for writing new document, she is reading or finding that document template and then modifying it. So once she has the correct template, or she started the modification, she found that she needs some data for the student, and what type of also when she starts the starts this goal, like get student record, she also needs so in order to get some information about the student, she also needs the application from the student or the letter from the student that student wrote to the program coordinator. Student support document, let's say, or support letter, where he wrote all the information about him. But this document can be also be part of be the program coordinator, where she can also or he can also send this document to the secretary. So he could have this document here. I mean, we could have this document here and then transmit or transfer this document to the secretary. So, but for now on, we directly put the document here, and we says that the secretary reads the letter, support letter from the student. So coming back to this goal, maybe a little bit organize. So to get the student record, the secretary needs to fulfill two other goals, is get some student personal data from the university database, and also get financial data to show that the student is financially capable to support his to support himself during the stay of his study permit. So the secretary don't have this financial data. She doesn't have the student personal data either. So where that data will come from? The data will come from another role that we had in our scenario. If you remember, we had this. Sorry. Data manager. I mean, from the role, yeah. But the data manager is managing the database, of course. So we have this new role. Let's say data manager, who is responsible for managing and sharing and providing data to authenticated users. So what is the goal? Sorry. So this goal, to fulfill this goal, the secretary will need some data. So what it does, she delegate this goal to data manager. So that's why data manager has a new responsibilities or objectives or goals. So this one here, and then also some financial data. So delegate this goal also, or maybe not this goal. For now, I can keep only one delegation. So what? Yeah. So for the data manager, he can have this nodes document let's say personal data file. So he will produce this document for this goal. He will produce this document, and once he produces this document will be transmitted to the secretary. So transmission, take this document and then transmit it to the secretary. So once we transmit it to the secretary, we'll have this new document. Basically it's about personal data. So for this goal, the secretary will read it. So now the secretary, this one will read it, this personal data. And then to get financial, so the secretary got the personal data from the data manager. So now she has to get the financial data for the student. So to get the financial data, he might or she might also need to fulfill two other goals. So that to get student university transaction document or a statement, and also his check his income adequacy. So she needs to get the university transaction document or transaction statement, and also she needs to check that the student has enough income in terms of scholarships or other sources to meet his expenses for his stay, for the renewal of study permit, and she needs to get both of them. She needs to confirm both of them. And again, to get the student's university transaction document or statement, the secretary needs to rely on data manager. So what she does is delegates this goal to data manager, and moved, and then the data manager has a new goal now, which will also produce a new document. Let's say income statement. It will produce this new document. And then this data manager will transmit these income statements to the secretary. So we got this income transmitted, and we got this income statements. Sorry, not this one. So we got this income statements that will be read by the secretary. So I think that's the most basic part that we have done. These are the shared documents. These are the shared goals between secretary and. So maybe I can make it even bigger so that you can see, and maybe move to this here. So did you finish all this design? So we can just save it. And now if we go to the information view, you will see that we have now more information, and yeah, but still we don't have any authorization because we didn't define any authorization yet. So did you finish this part? Let's move on to the modeling the information view. So if we want to add some more information now on top of this, we have some document, but we don't have any information, and we said that the information is tangible by the document. So just to enrich the model or enrich our design for example purpose, let's say we want add some information. So a student has information called personal data. Usually informations are never put inside the scope, so it's always outside the scope. So a student owns this personal data because it's about his data, or maybe I can put the student here so that it doesn't overlap. Okay, let me make it smaller. So a student owns this personal data, and then a student also might have some financial status or income, financial status that is also owned by the student. So as we discussed, this information can be are tangible by the document. So this personal data is tangible by personal personal data file, we can say, and then this financial status, this is tangible by the income statement. Or in other words, this personal data is part of this personal data file, and financial status is part of this income statement, or we can check if those data are correct through this document. Just for the sake of the example, we might, so when the document is ready, the program coordinator will sign it, right? So what we can have an signature, or let's say the LNU sign seal. This is also owned by the program coordinator, and this is also tangible by signed official letter, or it will be verified in the signed official letter. So in this way, whatever information you want, you can add. So secretary has these two documents, and so maybe we don't need that many information for now. One thing maybe I forgot to mention, so when you are doing your social view, you can add some metadata, and for your assignment you should also add those metadata. For example, student, if you click the student, then if you go to the properties, you will see the name, the description, mission, and the purpose. So purpose of the role, mission of the role, and the description of the role. So for each actors or for each stakeholders, you should define those, as well as for the goals and the documents. And for the goals, we can say if this actor or if this role is capable of this goal or not. So simply true, false. But try to fill as much as possible also about all this metadata when you are preparing your assignment. But obviously for an analysis purpose or for well-formedness purpose, or your model to be semantically correct, you don't need all those metadata. So those are more useful for readers or engineers. So now we have this social view. We have this information view where we added multiple authorization information or more new data. And then what we can, so as you can see, the authorization view has some more information. Before it had only 3 roles. So why they have this 3 new information? Because this 3 new information is owned by those roles. So no one other than the student should know the personal data or financial status. So this is one kind of default authorization. That's why they are here. So now let's move on to the authorization view, or to add some more information on the authorization. We have this student and we have this program coordinator, right, who is asking for the letters. So we go for the authorization link here, and from the student to the program coordinator we create a link. And when we create a link, we have this authorization box where we have to add the information and the goal. So between the student and the program coordinator, the goal, let's add the goal first. So the goal is get, let's say, write the official doc, or even you can choose write a doc for IO. And for this goal, what are the information? So just double click on it. So what is the information we need? Financial status and personal data. So we can add both of them. So, and then you can choose if the program coordinator can read. So double click on it. He is not producing. Those are produced by data manager. So she is also not transmitting them, and she is also not modifying them. So she can maybe for now only read. And then we can add other authorization between program coordinator and secretary. Where is our secretary? Well, the secretary is not here. Secretary was there. Okay, there. So we have this between program coordinator and secretary. We can also add other authorization. So we simply do this, and now we add the goal. So the goal is to get the, let's say, get student record. And for this goal, what are the information we need? We need personal data. We also need financial status, and secretary can read, but she cannot produce. He can modify. She cannot transmit this data also. So let's say we just click it 4 times, it will be cross. So these 2 she cannot do. Maybe also we can mention here that program coordinator cannot do this. So in this way we can allow or not allow certain operations on those document or data for achieving these goals. And then there can be another authorization for the data manager from the data manager to secretary, let's say. So data manager to secretary, and it was about get student personal data and get financial data, and even let's say get student UDT document. And what are the information we need? Basically, he is producing this document, so personal data and financial data as well. So he is producing this document. He is also transmitting this document, and then he can also read, but he cannot modify this document. So cross. So there was a question on the Slack. So the authorization or denial checkboxes in the authorization link refer to the role at the end of the link. Yes. So this authorization or denial is about to whom we are authorizing this document or these activities. So in this way, you can think of more relevant and logical authorizations. But I just wanted to give you the introduction on how we can draw the social view, the information view, and authorization view. So once we have that, I want to make it also some quick so that we don't go over the time. So now what we want to add some events or risk in our social view. So one of the very common is that people try to hack your data. So let's say this data manager had these 2 delegated goals where he created 2 new documents. So one of the goal was get student personal data, and there can be a risk. There can be a event or risk that can threat this this goal. So let's say DDoS, denial of service attack, and this threat will threat our student. So while the data manager is trying to get some data from the server, he can have this threat, or alternatively he might have another event or threat that the information he received is it's not of integrity or correct. So information integrity issue or document integrity issue with the personal data file. So this can also threaten this document. So in this way you can add other more meaningful threats or events. But what we are more interested in here is we wanted to specify security needs, right? So security needs are about the delegated goals or delegated or transmitted documents, because while they are transmitted or while they are delegated, we might have some security issue. So one of the thing, for example, income statement, this one you can add by right clicking it, you can add some security needs, and you can say that this security needs or this income statement document should receive confidentiality with by the receiver. So now you have a new security requirements, and if you double click on the lock, you will see that there is a security constraint that is imposed on this document that is transmitted. So you can lock or unlock the constraint. In the same way, write doc for immigration office, we can also add security needs. And for example, the student said that this goal should not be non-repudiated. So the program coordinator cannot reject this objective or goal, and we say that it's a non-repudiation but acceptance. So he must accept this goal, or she must fulfill this goal. Then we can similarly add other security needs. For example, one of the goal was from the that was delegated from the secretary for the data manager is get some student personal data. So let's say we can add this trustworthiness security needs, as well as we can also add this availability security needs. So by trustworthy we mean that the data manager is receiving a trusted person or trusted stakeholder, and then when we are adding the availability, so the data manager should be available, let's say 100%. So it should be available anytime or all the time to provide this kind of data to the secretary. And now if we double click it, you can see we have two different security needs for this goal, the availability and the trustworthiness. So in this way you can add the security needs in your social view, because this the social view has most of your components, and then you can also add security needs in the authorization. So some of the authorizations also might need some more security information. Let's say for this authorization by the student to the program coordinator, you can say that you cannot do the transfer, or this goal will not be delegated. So that's your question. It was. So if you can see that the student between the student and the program coordinator, this straight line, like this is not dash, and also in the social view is still the dash, right? So once we say that you cannot transfer this goal, so this authorization to other guys, then it becomes this dashes. I think it's not big. It did not become, but if we reload the model, it will become dashes. So it becomes dashes here, and also I think no, not in the information view. So only in the authorization view it became the dashes, but when we reload the model, it should also get the dashes, this part. Then we can also add other security needs. So basically in the authorization view, most of the security needs are about that this authorization cannot be transferred to other stakeholders. So it's all about transferability. So this is the modeling part that I wanted to show. It's already going to be 12. And what we want to do now, so did you try to get most of it? Okay, so what we want to do now, there is 3 kinds of analysis that we mentioned: completeness or well-formedness, then the security analysis, and the risk analysis. One thing I also want to show you, for example, if you click on this risk or event and right click on propagate threat, it will show you how this risk will be propagated through your process or through your model. And as you can see, most of our activities or objectives are affected if the data manager is affected by this DDoS attack. So even our main goal was affected. And then it's same for this one. So if we propagate this threat, it will show what are the part of the models are affected by this event or by this risk. So although all of them get red. So now coming back to the analysis part, I think if we also go back to here, you will see all your requirements now. So these are all the security needs that you specified, but eventually they will be translated to security requirements, or they will be elicited as security requirements. And now to the analysis part. So first of all, we need to check that our model is complete or well formed. So if you do the analysis, you found that yes, all our model was well formed. I think it's same for everything. And then the security analysis part. Yeah, if you run the analysis, it will also show that if there is any conflicts, or if the security analysis or the security requirements were well specified or not. So as you can see, there is some conflicts, and those were in the red. So our goal for this security analysis is to have green for everything, and that could be part of your assignment, like to make sure that everything is green here. So I might have some conflicting requirements, security needs here, that needs to be revisited and revised. But then we have this threat analysis. We also need we just run it, and it should be completed without any problem. But that the final goal is to basically to generate the outcome or the final report. If you do not perform this completeness check, security analysis and threat analysis, not everything will come to your report. So make sure that you first do these three, and then you go to or generate your report. So just give a title. So let's example security requirements, and then the author is obviously, so you should put your full name, because in this document you will submit also, that's why full name is important. So LNU, let's say, I can save this report in the current project, the report name. So for the report name, always put your full name, or maybe start with the report name, but then always put your full name like this, so that by looking at the document, it's easy to understand whose report is this. Also for your assignment, make sure that you write your report name in this way, or file name in this way. And also the author name, write your full name. If you write short name, it will appear as a short name also. So we want the PDF, and we want to open once we are done. So what you want to include in your report, you can choose here, social view, information view, authorization view, but by default we want everything to be included, and the length doesn't matter. So choose everything and then select finish, and it will generate the full report that we did until now. So it's a 28-page report, as you can see, and this is the title that we chose. Your name, full name should be there. Then the table of content, you have your social view that we modeled. We have all your stakeholders. These are some of the stakeholders metadata, but we did not. So the metadata is empty, as you can see, since we did not fill them. There are some information or document that we also mentioned, and then there are goals by different stakeholders. What is more interesting is, so there is some events or threads. So this is the information view. Then we have the ownership table. Then we have the authorization view. So this section is the thing that I'm looking for. So we have this specification of security requirements, but we had basically specified as security needs, but they translated into the form of security requirements. And these security requirements are specified here in this section and also summarized in this table. Then we did the well-formedness analysis, security analysis. So as you can see, we for the security analysis we got some problem, right? So that's why it has all these errors, but make sure that you don't have any errors in your. So maybe our model is also a little bit complicated, so try to also have a simple model so that you can easily resolve the problems or issues. So there was security errors or issues with security specification in our model, and then basically these are the models, and this is just the appendix. So as a deliverable, you should upload or submit this file at the end. So anybody could follow the whole process? Okay. So let's go back to the slides again, because I wanted to show the assignment thing. So for the assignment, I think the deadline is next Friday. Yes. So, or maybe the Sunday midnight, I don't remember. So for the assignment, you have two parts. In the first part, you will have two deliverables, and in the second part, you have another deliverables, basically the file that we generated. So as a part of this assignment, I will give you 6 design problem. If I don't remember all of them now, but there will have 6 design problems or 6 software ideas that you have to imagine that you are developing. And for that 6 design problems, you need to identify the stakeholders. So thoroughly think what could be the possible or who could be the possible stakeholders, and some of those stakeholders will be also used for your second assignment. And once you identify all these activities for deliverable 1 are basically from first and second lecture, and deliverable 2 is about the third lecture, and deliverable 3 is about the fourth lecture. So identify the stakeholders, then elicit and label functional and non-functional requirements. So at least 3 of each of them. So at least 3 functional requirements and 3 non-functional requirements for the given design problem. Perform a systematic checklist-based analysis. So in the slides, you will find very specific information on them. There is a table or other information that we introduced. Classify the identified requirements using the faceted approach. So I think we also mentioned this classification using this faceted approach, using some tree structure. And systematically assess their risk. So there is another checklist, I think, for systematically assessing the risk for the requirements. Perform a system validation for the systematic validation for the requirements. I think there is another slides or tables that checks each requirement systematically, if they're valid or not. Propose at least 1 test case for each requirement. And when I'm talking about test case, students always get confused that I don't know the details of the test case, so how should I propose the test case? So by test case, what I meant is criteria. So what part of the requirements you are testing and according to what criteria. You don't need to write a test case, the concrete test case. And with all this thing, define or develop a final requirements document. So this requirement document will be deliverable 1 that will be submitted in PDF. Also add your name to this document name. So out of those three requirements, three functional requirements, pick one requirement and do the modeling using the Eclipse eCore, using a simple modeling using some classes, maybe 2 or 3 classes, and add some attributes or some operations. The goal is to instantiate or have an instance of your model using the same way that we had on Wednesday. And then once you instantiate the model, define at least 3 OCL constraints to check various properties. It can be very simple or it can be even complex, but those OCL constraints must satisfy in your model. So your model should not have any red tags. And at the end, export the project in a zip and also upload it in my Moodle. So for assignment, the first part of the assignment, you have to upload one deliverable as a requirement document in PDF and one Eclipse project that we will do for the OCL project in zip. And what I want to import this zip file and test that your OCLs are correct or your projects are running or not. For the second part of the assignment, pick up one of the functional requirements again or any other non-functional requirements, and then draw the social view, information view, and authorization view in the same way that we did before today, and perform the security analysis, risk analysis, and the well-formedness analysis, and at the end generate this final PDF with your name and upload it to the My Moodle. So there is some guideline, and these guidelines are important because people write their reports, in particular the deliverable one, in a very random way, and that is very hard to follow, not very well presented, and of sometimes very poor quality. And that's why I have this 10% also on the presentation quality. And if you don't organize your report according to this guideline, you will lose by default this 10%. So what are those guidelines? By default, use the Eclipse modeling tool and the OCL for the first part, STS tools for the second part. This is obvious. Your font should be always Times New Roman, 12 point. Text alignment should be justified. Many people write center aligned, left aligned, and all these things, but it should be always justified. Always use black font. There should be space between lines, at least 1.5 or by default 1.5. There is no page limit because the requirement documents is not really a large document, so it will not end up like 20 or 30 pages, but there is no fixed page limit either. And the first deliverable will, and the second deliverable, first and the third will be in the PDF, and the OCL project will be in the zip. So this is the overall criteria for the evaluation. Content wise 90% and the presentation wise 10%. And do you have any questions on the assignment and on the other part of the lectures?
Where will submission link come after Moodle?
Submission link, I think it will be open right after the lecture or maybe by today, but then I think, I don't remember the exact date, maybe it's Sunday midnight if I'm not wrong, for the submission. So next Sunday, not this Sunday, next Sunday. So you have this whole 1 week or 9 days for the submission, for the preparation. So for the STS part should only focus on one requirement. So for OCL as well as for STS, you both focus only on one requirement. But for the requirements document, you should focus on all the requirements that you defined or identified. But out of those 6 projects, you have to only choose one project for all the assignments you are doing here. So don't do 1.1 for one project and 1.2 for another project. So
you have 6 to choose from?
yeah, you have 6 projects to choose from, and then you pick up one project. For one project, you define at least 6 requirements, 3 functional, 3 non-functional, and you pick one functional requirements for UML and OCL, and you can choose the same or other functional requirements for your STS. Got the idea?
Is the submission individual?
Yeah. So the project will be individual. Yeah. Someone also asked in the Slack if it's individual. Yeah. The projects, the OCL, the requirements document, everything will be individual. Because I thought of having a group work, but then it will be a mess to organize groups. I think that's why we had also last year we had individual projects. So any other questions before we wrap up this part of the course from Kalmar? If no other questions, then good luck for your assignment, and feel free to ask me questions either on Slack or in the email or even in the forum. So if it's a general questions, always ask in the forum. If it's a very specific questions, then you can ask in the email. Someone said the assignment seems very big for only 1 week, or am I slow? So the assignment is not very big. If you want, so for example, the requirements are 1.1. So all these 6 part, all of them are very basically based on the one slide. So for each of them, you just follow one slide and prepare your table or whatever you have. But if I would be a student, I would not take more than a day for the assignment 1.1, because the first 6 or first 5 or 6 tasks, they are all about, I think, maximum 2 hours. I mean, if you just follow the slides. Just find where we talked about faceted approach, where we talked about checklist-based requirements analysis, where we talked about systematically risk analysis, and where we talked about systematic validation. So those are the things that you need to find in the slides, but it's not about, I don't think it's a big assignment. But what you might need take more time on, like could be on SEL, or OCL, or the STS. But STS is also fairly easy. So OCL could be new for you, but I don't think it will be also that difficult. But anyways, I will be here to answer your questions. So if no more questions, then good luck for your assignment, and I will